Welcome to Best of the Best 2012 Picture Books for Pre-K. My name is Katie.
I'm Jessica.
And we are librarians at the Brown County Central Library. Today's books that we talk about can be found on our website at www.browncountylibrary.org. The list is on our website. You can also access our catalog where you can place holds on the books as well. Let's get started. Our first book on the list is The Astonishing Secret of Awesome Man. This is a really fun book, especially for those who like superheroes. I think it's going to be particularly appealing to boys. We have a lot of bright colors and a lot of action. Our story is about Awesome Man, and we find out there is this great superhero named Awesome Man. He can do all kinds of things like fly, and he has a great cape. He goes after bad guys, and we find out he has a super secret identity. And I love in this picture right here, we see the bad guy is coming down the street, and Awesome Man is here in the crowd and is in his super identity. We don't know which person he is in the picture. And we go through, and what I really like is that sometimes while Awesome Man is out all day being awesome, chasing bad guys, he has a meltdown. Sometimes he has a tough day. As it gets later in the day, he needs to head back to his super secret fortress, take a time out on his bed, take a moment, and then he realizes too, usually when he takes these little timeouts on his own to calm himself down, that he's out of fuel and he needs to eat something. So his sidekick, Moskowitz the dog, will bring him a little snack, and then he can get on with his day. The bad guy he was chasing down that got away, he ends up finding him, chasing him down, and then it's time for him to head home under his super secret identity, which is this young boy, and his super awesome mom is there waiting for him with a snack. So it's a really fun book. Great for those who like superheroes, lots of action, but I also like that our superhero even sometimes needs to take a time out, settle down, remember to have a snack. I know particularly young kids, they have such a busy day, they don't always like to stop for lunch or a snack, and I like that even Awesome Man has to take a moment and work on his self-control. So that is The Astonishing Secret of Awesome Man. Our next book is this year's Caldecott winner, A Ball for Daisy. This is a really sweet book. We have our main character Daisy, who is a dog, which I think is going to be popular with everyone. It is a wordless picture book, but we have such great, simple illustrations that really are pretty basic but show all the emotion and the action of the scene. You get the essence of everything that you need. We have our friend Daisy. She has a red ball that she loves to play with. And we just see how happy Daisy is playing with this ball. It's her absolute favorite thing. And the pictures are very light and fun. We can see expression and happiness on Daisy's face. I love the wordlessness of the book, that kids of any age can see the story and help tell the story. Well, in the story, Daisy ends up taking her ball out with her owner. They go to the park, and times are good. Our pictures are nice and bright. Daisy's happy. We have a lot of yellows, light blues. Well, Daisy at the park meets a friend, another dog, and they play together. They're having fun, and the ball pops. And Daisy is just crushed. And we can see in this picture just how sad and disappointed Daisy is. And then we're kind of going through her string of emotions here, and you can see our colors, our background colors in Daisy. We're going from yellow to purples to gray, almost complete black here. Daisy's mood is souring. She's not very happy. We see how depressed she is. Her owner runs to comfort her. She goes home. It's really not the same without her ball, but she has her girl to comfort her. And then, luckily, they go to the park the next day, and the new friend, the dog, brings a new ball for Daisy, which this time is blue. And then our two puppy friends can play in the park and then head home with their owners. It's a really sweet, simple story. With dogs in the book, I don't know how it can't be popular. And it's nice too to show we have good times, we have sad times, and that even when we make a mistake, we can make it right and make new friends in the process. So this is a really sweet book. This year's Caldecott, A Ball for Daisy.
Next we have Beautiful Oops by Barney Salzberg. This book, we don't have a copy in the library system yet, but we plan to get one. However, this is one of these books that doesn't necessarily fare well as a circulating book. So you might want to think about checking it out, seeing if you like it, and if you feel it would have a lot of use in your classroom setting, maybe buying a copy, new or used. This is my own copy here, because it does have movable parts. Like here's a deliberate tear, which is really fun, but makes it a little bit fragile, although it's sturdier than you might think. It also has flaps. It has transparent pages. And it does actually have one pop-up in here that you can look through. But this is a book about perseverance and creativity, what you can do with a mistake, not just in art, but it could be what can you do with mistakes in your life to make them into something good. But this would be a great book for an art class, for a prompt. You could give the kids different pieces of paper that might have a mistake on them, such as a drop of ink, a smudge, a tear. This one is actually a stain from a coffee cup, the rings you get. A stain has potential if you play with its shape. And here they turned it into a mud puddle for this little frog. And there's lots of other ones, holes, flap folds. Here's a spill of paint, and it becomes an elephant, a group of elephants. So it's making potential projects based on mistakes. And I think this is great for any child because a lot of times a mistake in art prompts a meltdown or discouraged feelings. And this is really just about resilience and creativity in general. So that's Beautiful Oops. It's a great little book. And then next we have Blackout by John Rocco. This was actually a Newbery Honor book this year, I believe. This takes place in a big city. It has a little boy here whose family is too busy to play a board game with him. He's kind of begging different members of his family. Mom's on the computer, dad's cooking, and his older sister won't get off her cell phone. She's chatting with a friend. So this little guy just plugs himself into his gaming system and sits by himself. But you can tell that he wanted some personal connection, and he's a little lonely. Well, what could be viewed as an inconvenience or an unforeseen circumstance turns to a positive for this little boy because there's a huge power outage all over the city. All the lights go out, which means, of course, that everyone has to unplug their electric devices or electronic devices. All they've got is a flashlight and some candles. So they hear noises from upstairs on the roof of their building, and they all go up the stairs, and they see that other families are starting to come up, and they're playing music, they're having a barbecue, they're doing shadow puppets under the stars. And then they hear noises coming from the street below, so they go downstairs all together, and people are playing in the sprinkler, they're playing guitar on their porch steps. This lady's giving out ice cream from her cart because presumably it's going to melt otherwise. So it's just a really festive feeling. Not only do they get to know their neighbors better, but they also get to spend some quality unplugged time together, which is really the point of this book, but it's not too didactic in making its point. It's just really fun. So then when the lights come back on, this little boy thinks that things are going to go back to normal, and he doesn't always like that. So he actually turns off the light to see what his family will do, and they're like, good idea, let's finish playing that board game we wanted to play earlier by candlelight. So it's a very satisfying book with a good point to make and great illustrations. It was Blackout. Next, we have Dot by Patricia Entriago. This is a book about dots. It would be great for a unit on shapes. And another one that came out last year is called Lots of Dots by Fraser with a Z, and that's also a great one. They could be used together if you'd like. This one has really simple graphics, but they're very effective. You can see slow dot, fast dot. Fast dot's just an addition of a few lines. So it's really just a good book about graphic design as well. Heavy dot, you can see the implied holes. It's a bowling ball. Bowling balls are heavy. Light dots, they look like bubbles. They've got like a thin outline and they're transparent. And another great one is photographs of hands, and it says hard dot, soft dot. You can see the soft dot has a little indent in it. So it's just really creative. Hurt dot just has a little red circle. Heel dot has a band-aid shape. So it teaches lots of new vocabulary. Got dots, not dots. It's very clever, kind of humorous. And then it ends in kind of a traditional way where the moon is a big dot and the stars look like little dots. So this is just a great book for teaching the concept of dots. It's called Dot.
Next is Everything I Need to Know Before I'm 5 by Valerie Fisher. This is a really visually appealing book. I don't know if I would say illustrator because it's photographs. So she photographed a lot of toys, and the toys help to illustrate different concepts that will be good to know before you're heading on your way to kindergarten. We have numbers, and I also really like the layout. I like her use of color. It's not too cluttered. We definitely can see this page is dealing with numbers. The numbers are definitely the focal point, and then along with each number we see one toy dinosaur, two toy grasshoppers, and they're really fun, a lot of vintage toys. So it's neat to look and see, you know, what is the next toy going to be that she's using. So we have our numbers, we go up to 10, and then we have marbles to get us from 11 to 20. So visually, too, that really helps to illustrate. And I like that we have the concept, we have the number, and we also have the words written out as well. And we get into a lot of basic concepts: opposites, easy and hard, full and empty. We get into shapes, two-dimensional and three-dimensional, colors, and I like that we use blocks to write the word of each color in the color that it is. So we go through a lot of great concepts. We then get into the alphabet. And again, the letter of the alphabet is definitely the focus of the page, and then we have some toys around it, which are objects that start with that letter, like a tiger on letter T, sunglasses for the letter S. And again, especially with alphabet books, I can find when you're adding items to go along with that letter, it can kind of be overwhelming and you can get a lot of stuff. But I like that it's not overwhelming, it's important concepts for kids to go over, and yet it's really visually appealing, easy to follow, and covers some really good topics. And that's Everything I Need to Know Before I'm 5 by Valerie Fisher. And our next book is a really sweet story. Goyangi means cat. And this is a nice story about adoption. Also, it can be used if you have someone new in your classroom who's kind of figuring things out. This story is about a young girl who is adopted from Korea, and there are only a few words that her family knows in Korean, and she doesn't know a whole lot of English. So they're both kind of trying to learn their way, and she's in their home, and she knows her family knows a few words. So you learn a couple Korean words. Mukda means eat, chimdae means bed, bap is rice, and jip is house. So they know these couple words. As she's adjusting, we see some of the events, not wanting to go to bed, being comforted when she gets hurt. But the one that she really connects with in the family is the cat, which is Goyangi. And she and Goyangi don't need to speak. They communicate through their friendship. And then, unfortunately, one day, Goyangi slips out the door, and the little girl can't find the cat, and she's very upset. They go out in the neighborhood looking for the cat, and they can't find it. So she is really upset. Ends up that she's kind of put into bed for a nap because she's so distraught. And then at night, when Dad comes home, the cat comes home with him. And so she's really happy. We have a happy ending. We see a friendship between the little girl and the cat actually helps to bridge the parents and the little girl to a relationship together, looking for the cat and taking care of the cat together as well. And as we go through the book, you'll see in the pictures, the text is actually written again in Korean. So it really is a bilingual book. However, the Korean text, it isn't in dark lettering like the English is. It's painted into the color of the painting and kind of more put into each illustration. So it's really woven into the pictures, just like her Korean language is woven into her life and who she is, which is a really nice touch. It's nice you learn a couple Korean words, and really it's a great story about new adjustments, new friends, adoption, and friendship without words, and love of cats as well. So we cover a lot of stuff. It's a really nice story. Goyangi means cat.
Okay, this is the Great Big Book of Families. This is a great book, of course, for a family unit because a lot of books about families were maybe made in the 80s, and although the text might be good for this age group, a lot of times you can tell a photograph is dated. So this is one of the new family books that explores all sorts of facets of family life. It alludes to the fact that picture books of yore would usually only show a white family, maybe even a blonde-haired, blue-eyed family with a boy and a girl, kind of like the Dick and Jane books, a cat and a dog. And this book shows that there are lots of families. There are families with gay parents. There are families that are biracial. There's families with just 2 people, or there might be families with 8 people. And there's foster families. There's all sorts of families. And it goes into different aspects of family life. Homes, school, some children are homeschooled, some go to public or private school. Jobs, sometimes parents have trouble getting jobs, sometimes parents work from home. It doesn't shy away from maybe more difficult aspects of families, such as maybe fighting or keeping things to themselves, or having money or job problems that might be stressful. You can see in some of the pictures that the illustrator kind of interpreted things in their own way that maybe the author wasn't quite trying to interpret. You don't know if really the author had oversight over that or not. Here's a quite scary picture of a mom screaming at her little boy, which I'm sure does happen, but it's a little bit out of place maybe. Here's another one. The children walking to school look very happy, and the mom, who's decided to take the car to school, is almost running over a cat. You can see a little mouse coughing from exhaust fumes. The car is full of fumes. Mom looks very mad, and the little girl looks scared. So that kind of seems to be the author's interpretation, maybe making a point about air pollution. But, besides a few illustrations that might be a little bit personal on the illustrator's part, I think this is a great overview of families. You could even just focus on specific double page spreads if you're just talking about that. For example, if you're doing a theme on homes, you could just, look at these 2 pages, or jobs. You could talk about this if you're doing a community helpers theme. So you can either look at all of it or some of it. Here's celebrations, but it really is great on giving a view of the diversity of modern families, and every child who looks at it, I'm sure, will recognize aspects of their own family. So that is The Great Big Book of Families by Mary Hoffman.
Next up is Hooray for Amanda and Her Alligator by Mo Willems. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with his work. He has a lot of fun books, and this is a great book from this year. In his regular style, we've got bright colors, a lot of use of emptiness on the page. It's uncluttered. Only what absolutely has to be there is there. We have Amanda and her alligator who are greeting us at the beginning of the book. And it's nice, the book has several short stories about Amanda and her alligator. So we get a table of contents. Each story is numbered and titled. So we also get practice with a table of contents and then also chapters in a book, which is a nice way to introduce it. Our first story is a surprising surprise. So our first couple stories deal with surprises. And Alligator's been waiting for our friend Amanda, who is at the library. And I like that then this comes back throughout the book. In every story, Amanda's reading a different book that she got at the library. And the books are pretty interesting. I like the different titles that she gets. We have our first surprise, and then Amanda is, in the second story she's reading, and she's reading How to Raise a Tiger in this one. She has some really interesting titles. And now in this book, Alligator is trying to surprise Amanda. And then, moving on, we have, in the third story, a surprising tickle. Now, this is a really sweet one. After Alligator has his thinking cap on, he says, "Something tickles." And Amanda says, "What tickles?" And he says, "I do." And he did, and he tickles Amanda. And then in our next story, which is a surprising value, again, Alligator comes to Amanda and says, "Something tickles." And Amanda says, "Oh, that was a funny joke, but I'm not going to fall for it again." And he says, "No, really," said Alligator. And when friends say, "No, really," they mean it. So we find out, we have to find what this tickle is. And we find there is a price tag on Alligator's tail, and that is what has been tickling him. So he reads the tag, and Amanda says, it says 7 cents. So Alligator is like, 7 cents? I was only worth 7 cents, and he's really sad. And he said, "Why am I only worth 7 cents? And Amanda did not say anything. "Tell the truth," said Alligator. And when friends ask you to tell the truth, you tell the truth. You were in the sale bucket," said Amanda. And we go on, and he thinks, "I was only worth 7 cents. Like, why was I in the sale bucket? And because no one wanted me, why was that?" And Amanda said, "No one wanted to buy you because they knew you were meant to be my best friend." So then Alligator feels better. But only for a bit, because in our next story, Amanda ends up bringing home, later on, a new panda. And Alligator is not sure about this panda. And the panda does not look like he came from the sale bucket. So Alligator's maybe a little jealous as well. And Panda's really cute and gets a lot of attention, and Amanda leaves Alligator and Panda alone. And it turns out they have a lot in common, and they end up having a really fun time together, singing songs, dressing up, and making discoveries. So it's a really fun, sweet book. You've got a lot of stories in here, so you could read them one at a time, maybe one each day, or you could read them all together. You also get, as I said, that introductory of a table of contents and a book broken into chapters. So that again is Hooray for Amanda and Her Alligator by Mo Willems.
Okay, here's a very unusual and clever picture book of the alphabet. It's called If Rocks Could Sing. You can see all the title on the front is made up of rock letters. It's by Leslie McWork. Here is the whole alphabet too. Now, these are all unaltered rocks that she found on the beach over years and years of searching. Not only is every letter of the alphabet illustrated with a letter made of rock, but you also have an illustration that goes with it where the rocks illustrate the concept of something that starts with that letter. So, for example, B is for bird. You have the letter B made of a rock, and then you have a bird-shaped rock right there. And it's a really great mix of different types of illustration. Some are straightforward like this. They show you an actual bird. This is more a concept one because it's got a couch potato. And she adds a little prop, which is this little fainting couch here that the couch potato's on. So some are, traditional. The E is for elephant. Nothing in the background except solid color. Some of them have multiple rocks in there. G is for ghosts, and you see all these ghost-like rocks. Some illustrate emotional concepts. This is J for joy. And you've got two fish-looking rocks here that are both smiling at each other. So it's a variety of concepts that are illustrated, not just a straightforward object for everyone. Some of them are more interpretive. Here is V for Valentine. You've got a variety of hearts. U for up. Here's one that relies on a prop a lot because it's got two little animal-looking creatures that look like they're facing each other, and then they're on a seesaw. And this one's one of my favorites. It's X is for XOXO, and the rock kind of looks like two people hugging. It looks a little bit like a modern sculpture. And the purpose of this book is not only to tell us the alphabet and celebrate nature, it's also kind of a story of patience and perseverance, because you learn at the end of this book that these were all found on the beach over a period of years and years, and that the letter K was the one she waited for years to show up. She found the other ones far before that one, but she had to wait a lot of extra time. All the rocks except for one, which is the letter X, were found in Maine, or in Florida, and the letter X was found in Maine. So most of these are from Florida. But it's just a great book about creativity too. Like, you might not, seeing this on the beach, think to collect it and save it to make an illustration for a picture book. So even though these rocks might not have monetary value, it shows you there's value in nature, and there's also value in being creative. This whole collection together made something really unique that kids are really going to get a lot out of, but in a way it's just a pile of beach rocks, which anyone could collect. So that is If Rocks Could Sing.
And next is Jam and Honey. This is a story about a little girl and a bee. And when we start out, we have the girl. And the whole book is written in rhyme. I'm going to pick berries all by myself, enough to fill the bucket, high on the shelf. So our little friend, she goes to the park. She sees a bee. She's a little bit startled, and her mom tells her, just sit still. It's the nectar bees want, not little girls. So she's busy picking her berries, and the little girl and the bee come nose to nose. And the little girl is very startled. She's a little bit scared, but she does what mom says. She holds really still, and she knows it's not her the bee is interested in, but the nectar in the flowers. And she ends up getting her berries, and she ends up being able to go home. One for the bucket and one for me, berries for the girl and nectar for the bee. Then we start all over again with the bee. So now it's the exact same story, but from the bee's perspective. And he starts out, I'm going to get nectar all on my own, nectar from the vines where the flowers have grown. So the bee is also going to the park, and this bee is going to collect nectar all on his own. He's flying through the park. He sees the girl, but his mom had told him that if he just flies up high, the little girls are interested in berries, not bees. So same thing, the bee is busy getting nectar so that the bee can go home and make honey, while the girl is focusing on getting berries to make jam. Our bee is focusing on nectar so that he can make honey. And then we had the startling moment where the bee comes nose to nose with the girl, and we already know that the girl was a little bit frightened of the bee. Well, now on the bee's perspective, we see the bee is just as frightened of the little girl, but same thing, knows that if he doesn't bother her, she shouldn't bother him, and they are both able to go about their own ways. We know the little girl was able to get her berries, and now the bee is able to get his nectar, berries for the girl and nectar for the bee. Is how it ends. And then we see The little girl heads home, the bee heads home, and then we see at the very end the little girl was able to make her jam, and there she is eating it, and with the little bee flying around, and he's probably busy getting ready to make some more honey. So that's nice, jam and honey. We can talk about living in harmony with nature, that we can help each other. Bees are making honey for us. We can also at the same time share the same space. And it's also nice to see a story from two different perspectives, whether it's a girl collecting berries and a bee making honey, or it could be a great writing prompt where you could then in your classroom do two sides to the same story. Particularly also, I like that the girl is afraid of the bee, and then when we see the bee's perspective, we see the bee is just as afraid of the girl, and that really once we understand both sides, they really didn't have a need to be afraid of each other. So it's nice to look at it that way as well and have a story to talk about understanding and seeing things from the other perspective as well. So that's Jam and Honey. Our next book is Little White Rabbit by Kevin Henkes. This is a really sweet book, great for spring and coming up on the Easter season. Little White Rabbit is about our friend, a really cute little white rabbit. And our pictures use a lot of nice soft pastels. We have our friend there, Little White Rabbit. He's hopping along. And Little White Rabbit is very curious. He does a lot of wondering. And now we can see when he's in real life, Little White Rabbit is always bordered by a white border on the page. And he's hopping through the grass, and he wonders what it would be like to be green. So now we have a full 2-page spread, no border. So we can see there aren't any borders. He's imagining. He's in his world of wondering, and he's wondering what it would be like to be green. So here we see Rabbit, and he's green. And then as he's hopping through his day, he wonders other things. He sees the trees, and he wonders what it would be like to be tall. So we go through a lot of nice basic concepts. Green, tall. He wondered what it would be like to not move like a rock. And then we see a passage of time here where Little Rabbit is still as a rock, and he just sits as we go through rain and sunsetting and nighttime. So he wonders a lot of things, and then he ends up heading home, finding Mom, and he doesn't wonder who loves him because his mom does. But then at the very end, we see everyone settling in to go to sleep, except our little friend Rabbit, who is still wondering. So even though it's the end of the day and time to go to bed, he's not going to stop wondering. And he's wondering about our little bug here. So it's a really sweet, simple story. It talks about some simple concepts and is a really good book to kind of spur imagination. Also really sweet, appealing illustrations by Kevin Henkes. And that's Little White Rabbit.
Okay, next we have a very artistic substitute for if you're a little bit fatigued of Where's Waldo or I Spy, or maybe you have a little bit younger crowd, such as a preschool or even a toddler audience. This can be read aloud because it actually has really creative text. You're looking for very interesting things. I think one of them was a ogre in a submarine. Or a pumpkin phone. So you're not just looking for something basic. The whole text and general feel of this book is very retro, almost like a 50s look, but the text is very almost like Seussian, if that's a made-up adjective, but I think you know what I mean, very whimsical. A bone, a cone, a pumpkin phone, a clock, a sock, a toothy crock. And then every 2-page spread is a different theme. This one is museum creatures. So it's very fun. Some of the 2-page spreads have this overlay with whole inserts in it, which pick out extra things for you to find. So on this page it says museum creatures all escape, lion, tiger, rhino, ape. Look and find the vampire's cape. So that will take them a while. Once they find the vampire's cape, they can look for these extra things, a bowl, a troll, a barber pole, a ham, a clam, and Uncle Sam. It really gives a lot of things to look for, and at the end, or you think is the end, it's telling you to count or look for these extra things, you're counting 1 through 12. Can you find 1 cow amongst all the pages, 2 bicycles, 3 pigs, and so on? So it's another way to look at the book. And like stinky skunks and chimney sweeps, dinosaurs and purple sheep, toasters, rockets, little frogs, ice cream eating wiener dogs. We hope this book has shown to you a way to see the world anew. Our journey now comes to an end, so look again and tell a friend. So that's great. And then the end papers are all kids reading. So even if you don't have children who are old enough to read independently, if you do have like a quiet reading time, this would be great for them to look for different objects on their own. It might not necessarily be the best for a group, but it could also be a practice for a beginning reader. And as a reward for being able to read these words, they can find the object as well. So that is Look a Book.
Our next book is The Loud Book. And you may remember from our list last year, from the same author, we had The Quiet Book. And this year it's The Loud Book. And where The Quiet Book was all about different kinds of quiet, this is about different kinds of loud. There are lots of loud, alarm clock loud, and we can see our friend with his ears covered up from that alarm clock. And we have the same characters we had in The Quiet Book. They're really cute little stuffed animals, drawn very softly and really expressive. So it's very interesting pictures to look at, a really muted color palette. So it's really, I find too, even though it's The Loud Book, it's relaxing to look at, it's interesting to look at. There's burping during quiet time loud. There is fire truck day at school loud, and I love especially this guy right here. You can see his mouth is open so wide. He's just hollering up on that fire truck. I also like, there's a lot of fun louds, when it's fun to be loud, and times when you it's not appropriate to be loud and you probably shouldn't be, or times that it's a little embarrassing, like candy wrapper loud. And you can see that they're in a movie theater and the other patrons in the movie theater are not very happy about hearing the crinkling of that candy wrapper. But we've got a lot of sweet louds and fun times, and then we get into sort of a little vignette of crackling campfire loud, collapsing tent loud, snoring sister loud, and then we end on crickets loud. So at the end, our poor little guy here went camping, the tent fell down, he ended up sleeping next to his snoring sister, and now is sleeping outside the tent and has the crickets to keep him up all night as well. So it's a really fun, sweet book and a great concept to talk about. Times when it's appropriate to be loud and times when maybe you want to be quiet. And it's great to pair with The Quiet Book as well. Our next book, Meet the Dogs of Bedlam Farm, is by John Katz. Some people might be familiar with John Katz as an adult author, and in his adult books he's written about his farm and his dogs. In this book he highlights 4 of his dogs, and I don't know how this can't be a winner since it's starring 4 real-life dogs, and you have really great bright photos of the dogs, which are really interesting, and you see the dogs in action. So any dog lover is going to love this book. Also, the dogs live on a farm and do different jobs on the farm. So it is a nice book that you could do with any sort of helping unit or farm unit, of course, as well. So we have 4 dogs, Rose, Izzy, Frida, and Lenore. And we meet each dog, and throughout the book, we keep asking, what is Lenore's job? We find Izzy is a herding dog. So Izzy helps to herd the sheep, but Izzy is extremely serious and didn't really know how to have fun or didn't know how to play until she met, that's our dog, Rose is the herder. And Rose didn't really know how to have fun until she got to play with Lenore. Lenore taught Rose how to play, how to have fun, so Rose has fun as well as play. Izzy had a tough puppyhood, we find out, but after rehabilitation, Izzy goes and visits people who are ill in hospital and in hospice, and is sort of a companion and spends some time helping those who are ill. And Izzy, having a tough background, Lenore was there to help Izzy learn to be a friend and learn to be around other dogs and be gentle. So Lenore was there for Izzy. But again, we're wondering, what is Lenore's job? We don't know. And then we have our friend Frida. Frida was a wild dog before she came to the farm. And Frida is also very serious and guards the farm. Frida goes ahead and patrols, makes sure everything is on the up and up. And sometimes Frida, they said, even is still wild and runs off for a couple days and then comes back. So Frida's a little possibly high-strung at times, but Lenore is one of the first friends Frida had on the farm and is happy to be with Frida and is a good friend to Frida as well. So then finally, we get to Lenore, and the whole book, in each dog, we're asking, what is Lenore's job? Well, now we get to highlight Lenore, and we find out Lenore doesn't like to work. Lenore does not like herding sheep. Lenore is not able to go visit people who are sick. Lenore doesn't really have an interest in guarding the farm either. Lenore would rather eat, would rather play in mud particularly, and run around. But most importantly, we find out of all the dogs, Lenore has a job that is just as important. She is a friend. She has been there to all of the dogs. She makes sure that they're happy. She helps look after everyone's well-being, and she is a great friend to all the dogs. And it ends saying, that may be the greatest work of all. So that is a really fun book if you like dogs. And I like, too, that we get to see the personality of each dog, and we see that even though there are 4 dogs living on the same farm, they're all very different, and they all help in different ways. Just like in your own classroom, everyone will help in the classroom in different ways. So it's a great book on friendship, on helping, on farms, and on dogs as well. That's Meet the Dogs of Bedlam Farm.
I'd like to know what happened when Lenore tried to visit the sick at the hospital. There is something bad because
knows?
they never mention
Who
why.
knows?
Okay, this is called Mitchell's License. I'm just going to talk about this one briefly because it's pretty straightforward. There's no deep philosophical meaning to this book, but it's great if you have a unit on cars or transportation. A lot of teachers have groups that are crazy about any kind of transportation. So that alone makes this a good book, but it's also well done. Good harmony between the text and the illustration. We actually have got a biracial little boy here, which is great. That's not often depicted in picture books, and it looks like that was just the artist's choice to do. Nothing is actually mentioned about that point, but it was great that he interpreted things that way. So we've got a little boy whose dad is an extremely patient, fun guy. And every night, this little boy's obsessed with cars. He makes his dad into the car, which involves pretty much riding on his dad's shoulders, shining up his windshield, which is his glasses lenses. He pulls on his ears forward to make him go, or backwards to make him brake, but sometimes they don't brake in time. You can see here they have both hit the door, but dad shakes it off, and the little boy doesn't seem troubled at all. So they go through this whole routine every night. He bumps his nose to honk the horn. He really is kind of pulls dad's hair back for the brakes. You can see he's just thrilled that his dad puts up with this night after night. Here he is pouring some oil into the engine. That's actually looks like water from his sippy cup, and he's just pried his dad's mouth open. Dad spits out a little bit of the water, but the engine seems fine. So this goes on pretty much every night to the little boy's glee. But then he tries something else, adding another layer to his creative play, which is that the gas station is this cookie jar and he needs cookies. So Dad puts his foot down because it's late at night and he says, no, we're not gonna have the cookies this time. So our little boy Mitchell has a bit of a meltdown, but he kind of calms down because he does want to be able to drive his daddy car tomorrow night. And so he realizes he probably shouldn't have a tantrum. And in his dreams, he goes to the cookie gas station. So not really much to it more than that, but it's just a really cute depiction of a family and creative play. And of course, it contains a car. So it's automatically going to be popular. Then we have Mouse and Lion instead of the Lion and the Mouse, which is the way that this tale is traditionally named. You might remember there was a Jerry Pinkney wordless version called The Lion and the Mouse that came out a few years ago. I believe it won the Caldecott. It did. Okay, so it won the Caldecott and it was gorgeous, and we had the lion on the front. This version would be great to do along with the other version because in a lot of ways they're different. This puts the emphasis on the mouse, as you can see by the altered title. They're both very detailed and have gorgeous illustrations, but this one has a fairly minimal, very traditional, straightforward telling of the tale. This takes place, I believe, on the savannah. As in all the versions, the lion gets trapped in a hunter's net, and the loyal little mouse promises to rescue him. And he keeps his promise. And we see that strength isn't about size. It's about loyalty and persistence. After the lion is freed, we have this gorgeous double-page spread. Here is the half of him that's in the physical world, and this blue half here is his thoughts. This is his gratitude for being alive. It says, that day such small things made him happy. You can see all these little things that he now appreciates because he's been rescued. And there's a little note in the back telling how they decided to interpret this tale. This is by Rand Burkett and Nancy Burkett. I'm not sure how they're connected, if they're husband and wife or mother and son, but it's a very good retelling. You could use the stories together, have the children tell this wordless version by Jerry Pinkney, and then do this version as a contrast. But Mouse and Lion, there's definitely room for many different versions of this very classic story.
Our next book is Neville, and like Goyangi means cat, this is about a friend who is new to the neighborhood. This little boy, you can see at the beginning, they've moved, they traveled through the night, the day, the night, and then finally the next day, they're able to arrive at his new house. And you can see the street that they moved to. It's all black and white, dark, not very interesting. And the boy is not happy about having had to move. In fact, in this picture, he's kicking one of the boxes off the porch. And Mom suggests he might want to take a walk down the street, kind of see the neighborhood, because he's so upset. So he decides to take a walk, and the neighborhood, again, not very interesting. He gets to the end of the block, and he yells, "Neville!" So he's yelling this just to yell, and then another kid comes up and says, "Well, I'll help you yell." So they're both yelling Neville there on the street. And then another little girl comes and she says, "Well, you should really yell the name together. He'll be able to hear you better." So they yell Neville together. And then before you know it, we have a ton of kids all over calling for Neville. So they're having a fun time, and they get chatting, and some kids say, "Oh, we should run down to the next block. Maybe he's over there." And then finally it starts getting dark. The kids have to head home, but they're saying, "Can we come back tomorrow and help you look for Neville?" And then we hear them as they're walking away saying, "I hope we find Neville. Even if we don't, I like his friend a lot." So the little boy ends up going home, brushing his teeth, having dinner, getting ready for bed. Mom tucks him in, and it seems he's had a better day. And now you'll notice our pictures are in color. As soon as our friends show up and we have this page where everybody's helping and yelling his name, we have tons of color. And then as he's heading home, the streets have more color, there's more vibrancy. Even his room in the dark has color. And Mom says, "Good night, Neville, pleasant dreams." So Neville all along, shocker, was the little boy that was yelling the name, and we see his name written outside the window, and we see that he's going to be okay in his new neighborhood. It's a really sweet book for kids who are new to a classroom or a neighborhood. Also, I really like how the other kids in the story pitch in and immediately want to help him, and they ask him questions about Neville and where is he from. So this is a really nice book to welcome someone who's new, but also to show how great it is to be a good helper as well. And I like the helping in that. So this book was Neville.
Okay, I did not realize it was supposed to be obvious that he was going to be Neville. I did not see that coming. I thought he was shouting for his imaginary friend just because he was going to, he was going to get attention that way. I still thought he was being clever, but I was thrown for a loop.
Well, I wasn't sure at first, but then when they started asking questions, I caught on right away. I thought, I bet this kid's going to be Neville, and lo and behold, he was.
Now I feel
But you
ashamed.
you got to get up pretty early to put one past me. Our next
Yes.
book is 1 Foot 2 Feet. It's a book about plurals. It's an exceptional counting book, and it's very simple, but a really important one that I think is good to use. 1 foot, and then we have this nice cutout. We're getting a close up on our foot, and then we turn the page 2 feet. Again, a nice uncluttered page, bright contrast colors that are bright, and then right here 1 foot. So we have that over here. Next we have 1 mouse. We turn the page to, 3 mice. We had 2 feet. So 3 mice, and then we have 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 mice, and also you may notice we have a little airplane here. So for every plural we're getting irregulars. 1 goose, 4 geese. So we're not only getting those irregular plurals, we're also getting our counting. We're keeping track of what we've been counting in the corner here. And then we also, which is fun to look at, it's easy to find a nice little airplane that flies through every picture, kind of reminiscent of Goodnight Moon. So we go through all the way up to 1 person, 10 people. And again, it's fun. We have this cutout where we see part of the picture, our 1, and then we turn the page and we see all the extras. And then 1 child, 1 billion children. And then we have a review of what we've been counting. So we work on a lot of really great concepts here, particularly working on plurals, which is good not only for little ones, but also language learners who are working on English. And then also we add the aspect of counting, and it's even illustrated in here as well, how we're counting more and more. A good introduction to irregular plurals, that's 1 foot, 2 feet, an exceptional counting book. And next is a really interactive book, Press Here. Really simple, but really great to use, great for one-on-one. It's really wonderful for one-on-one reading, but also good in a smaller group. When you get too many, it might be a little overwhelming, but it's a book that encourages the reader to interact with the book. So it's asking, are you ready? Press here and turn the page. So we press here. Oh my goodness. Now there are 2 dots. Great. Now press the yellow dot again. I'm going to press it again. Now there are 3 dots. Perfect. Rub the dot on the left gently. Okay, so we can talk about which way is right, which is left, and we're going to rub it. And what happens? It turns colors. All kinds of things happen. All kinds of things. Our dots turn to different colors. Our dots multiply into different rows. And then things get pretty wild. We shake up the book and the dots go all over. We end up blowing, clapping. We tilt the book back and forth to see the dots. When we tilt the book this way, the dots end up moving over here. And every time we turn the page, there's a surprise waiting for us. And meanwhile, we have this little bit of text that's directing us as what to do. So it's really interesting because we want to turn the page and find out what's going to happen. Also, you're asked to interact with the book. The kids have to clap, have to blow, have to press, have to rub. And by doing that, that's affecting what's happening on the next page. So I think the kids are going to really like that. Really great for one-on-one, but also it's great to get a group involved as well. And then we get to the very end, we end up back to just 1 dot, and you can be done or start all the way over again at the beginning. A really great interactive book to excite a small group, or even better for one-on-one reading. And that is Press Here.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to skip ahead to my last one just so I know that I'll have time for it, because along with Hooray for Amanda and Her Alligator by Mo Willems, which Katie talked about, this one is my other favorite picture book for this year. You Will Be My Friend. And you can tell by the order on the cover that you will be a friend. She will find a friend. This little girl bear here with a bow in her hair by Peter Brown. It's got these retro style, sketchy looking illustrations. The main text always has a blue box around it. And then the speech bubbles are a variety of different colors. So depending on how confident you are about reading this book, you could just read the straightforward text. You could read just some of these thought bubbles, or you could read them all. But there's a lot of different ways to read this. So Lucy is obviously standing for a very excitable, optimistic child who is sure things are going to go her way. Her mom says she's happy for her that she's looking for a friend, but where are you going to find one? And Lucille says, Mom, the forest is crawling with fun critters. Surely one of them will want to be my friend. This is going to be great. There's not a doubt in her mind. She cannot wait to have a new friend. We're going to do cartwheels and have picnics and climb trees and go swimming and have a dance party. So it's all pretty much set, but then her enthusiasm, plus just some differences in nature, put a damper on her plans. She jumps into the frog pond to be friends with the frogs, but when she jumps in, all the water flies out. She tries to be friends with the giraffe, but the giraffe is grumpy, and she's in his breakfast dish because the tree is his breakfast dish. She scrubs this little squirrel. The squirrel wants his scent back to protect himself. She asks this ostrich how it is to fly. The ostrich is offended, obviously, because he is a flightless bird and kind of grumpy also. So then she starts not being herself anymore. She tries to do things that a bear wouldn't necessarily enjoy, like fit into the little rabbit's den, which she can't do. Hold her breath underwater like the fish. She even dresses like a kangaroo, which just scares this poor kangaroo. So then she meets some children who do want to be her friend, but they're treating her like a giant teddy bear. So that's the only friend she actually denies. She's like, no, that's not going to work out. Well, then, like so many children, she moves on to the bossy phase. It says that's when things got ugly. You know, she's getting frustrated. She's been really positive so far, but it ends now. So she says to the monkey, you won't get any snacks unless you start liking me right now, which we know is no way to have a friend. You will be my friend. I can wait. Just talking to an unhatched egg. Then she tries to calm herself down. She uses all the techniques she knows. She uses deep breathing. She says, take a deep breath, Lucy. You can do this. You can make a new friend. Just be yourself. You can see her body language there. She's really trying. Total meltdown. Here's the giant text. Doesn't anybody want to be my friend? And she's totally dejected. Here she is. She can't even get off the ground anymore. She's gone through the full range of emotions. So just when it looks like she's destined for disappointment, she meets this flamingo. And the flamingo, which we don't know why there's giraffes and other safari animals in this forest, but it doesn't really matter. The flamingo says, squawk, squawkity squawk. Oh my gosh, are you asking me to be your friend? Squawk? I accept. So even though they're a different species, they like to do the same kind of things, and that's the end. I have used this for a preschool story time already, and they thought it was hilarious. It's a great story about perseverance. Obviously, it would be great for a friendship unit. To me, it's just perfect, I think. It's very humorous.
Very fun. Well, we're almost out of time, and we weren't able to make it through every single one of the books on our list, so make sure you check out our website, www.browncountylibrary.org, to see our list. We also have other great reading lists you can take a look at. And don't forget, with your library card, you can access our catalog and place holds on any of these books so you can use them in your own classroom. Thanks for watching, and check out our website, www.browncountylibrary.org.
It's alright, it's okay, not what you thought it would be someday. Trying to